Hello?
Hello.
Hello? Can you hear me?
Hello.
You're with me.
I can hear you. You hear me?
That's the... I cannot hear you. Oh, it might be me. Hold on.
You can't hear me?
Hello, hello?
Yep.
Might be me. Hold on. Hello? Oh, hello? Oh, it's not me. See you.
Could you hear
Yeah.
Could you?
Here we go again. Trying hard, but you wanna be my friend. Ain't no place to hide, ain't no one to run to. Here we go again. Call my bluff, I'ma be here till the end. I'm the one you ride, I'm the one you ride to. If you don't wanna change, ain't no place to hide, ain't no one.
Welcome into Hardcore Penn State Football and the inaugural. The Hardies, brought to you by Hardcore Penn State Football, the wrap up to the season award show. We've got some awards to give away. We've got a lot of top shelf news to talk about, recruiting news, transfer portal news, NFL news, just all sorts of stuff to get into today. Let's get right into it, everybody. I'm all over the place today. All right, here we go. Welcome to Hardcore Penn State Football. I'm Corey Listoki. With me, as always, the great Shawn Kane. How are you doing today, Shawn?
Doing awesome. Happy hump day, Corey. How are you?
I lost you again.
No. Okay. All right. Hold on.
We lost Shawn, everybody.
Can you hear me now? Okay. Hold on. I'll be out. I'll be back in.
Your call is important to us. Please maintain on the line. Oh, now I can hear you. Your call is important to us. Please stay on the line. Everybody live on YouTube, why don't you guys say hello while we're waiting here? I see Doritos in here. Dorito, how are you doing tonight? Anyone else on YouTube? I know my face is split. Just ignore that for right now. Hope everyone's doing well. Apologize for the technical difficulties. Maybe it was just me. I don't think it was. Well, you saw him. You guys are delayed a little bit, Joey. So you might not have caught up to when he was bad yet. But okay. I can hear you now.
You can hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Well, how you doing today, Shawn?
Doing great, Corey. Happy Hump Day.
Hump Day. It's not just Hump Day. It is the inaugural unveiling of the Hardcore Penn State Football Award Show, the Hardies, where we recap the season in emphatic fashion. You ready for this?
I was born ready for award shows. We should have wore tuxes.
I know. Next time, right? You got to start at the bottom, right? We have something to improve on every year. If we do everything perfect on the first year, I mean, how are we going to grow?
Yeah, maybe we could pick up a Men's Warehouse sponsorship next year too, and they could just pay for the tuxes.
That's not a bad idea right there. I'm something at least to investigate.
We're once again asking for your financial support, Men's Warehouse.
Hi everybody on YouTube. Hope you guys are doing well. Hopefully you guys are excited for the show. We've got, let me see here. We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 awards to give out today. We've got a lot of top shelf news to talk about. Let's just start with the breaking news that just happened right before we went on air. I think that's a good place to start. And we thought this might happen based off of what had happened earlier in the week. And that, of course, is Penn State former commit to or I don't know what you want to call the transfer commits. I still call them commits, but whatever you want to say. Devin Carter, originally from NC State, committed to Penn State right after the Rose Bowl, wide receiver. And then all the early enrollees and all the transfers came to campus and officially enrolled this week and started classes and moving in and et cetera. Storm Duck was there. Falcons was there. Thompson was there. And Devin Carter wasn't there. And so then you're like, okay, well, that's awkward. He was not enrolled in classes, but he was in the Penn State directory, according to Tyler Calvaruso with 24/7 Sports. And from what Tyler said on their podcast, basically, Devin Carter wanted a number. He wanted a number. And Penn State wasn't ready to really match that number. And I have said this kind of from the beginning, right? Like, this is no knock on Devin Carter. I respect the guy saying, hey, this is my price tag, and I would like that to be met. Devin Carter's about to go into 6-year football. The NFL is not 100% guarantee for him. He has the talent to do it. He's got to stay healthy to do it. I have no issue with a guy trying to get a little bit more money while he can. Absolutely fine with it. But I also respect Penn State to say, you know what? We really like you. We really want to have you. But at the same time, not really ready to drop that amount of money in order to get you. I don't know what that number was. And I don't want to say that Penn State couldn't have matched it if they wanted to. But West Virginia did. And he is committed to West Virginia, and he plans to finish out his college career at West Virginia. All the best to him. But Shawn, this is like a prime example. A lot of times now on social media, fans are sour grapes, and they're saying, oh, NIL. The reason for this guy decommitting is NIL. And honestly, a lot of times it's not true. But in this case, it actually was the case.
Yeah. I think the way Tyler put it was the people around him want to make sure that he's getting the value for what he deserves. So 24/7 pod, I like the 24/7 pod, but they're much more corporate and buttoned up than we are. That means money. That's the translation for you. Money.
Money, here comes the money. Money.
And I mean, look, that's fine. I'm not going to be the complainer. I'm not going to pull a Brett Bielema and say, oh, can you believe this? No, guys, this is the way it is. I mean, get with it, or I don't know. Don't watch. I don't know what to tell you, but this is going to happen from time to time. But the encouraging thing is, if Devin Carter was at Penn State, at least going in, I don't think he's not as good as Keandre Lambert-Smith, so he wouldn't even be the number one receiver on the team. Like, I think there are going to be guys. Remember, Dante Cephas is still out there. There's going to be guys that aren't. There are going to be guys that aren't even in the portal yet that we could get in on. And is it concerning that we don't have a receiver yet? And we've been talking about how much we needed a receiver, and it's going to be the middle of January. Yeah, it's a little concerning because, in our opinion, we need two of them, and we don't have any. We don't have any receivers. But it's not the end of the world. It's not like we're sitting here in May and we don't have any receivers. I think by the time April, May roll around, we probably will have at least one. And maybe Cephas will still be out there. But it's time to – but so while I'm not panicking, I think we got to we got to try to get one of these guys in. And Broden, who we're going to talk about, might be that guy who was maybe good, who was thinking about committing today, but pushed it off. And I'm sure we're going to be getting into him now.
Well, yeah, let's just go the whole wide receiver route since we're already 1 foot's in the door. Let's just do it. Andrew Redding, a.k.a. Dorito on YouTube, he just said, I'm trying not to freak out about wide receivers. So let's just do it. Also, Joey House just said on YouTube, Marvin, I'm assuming Marvin Harrison, he says Marvin will just come home after he leaves Ohio State, ... which would be fantastic, but probably not likely. Let's talk about Broden, Tyrone Broden, 6'7" wide receiver from Bowling Green, was supposed to commit today, did not commit today. I was waiting for it. I was like, Twitter fingers like Drake over there waiting for it, trying to figure out when it was going to happen, and then it didn't happen. Oklahoma was supposed to be the favorite. It seemed like maybe Devon Sears and Broden were maybe going to be a package deal. But then, maybe you remember the name of the Michigan wide receiver that Oklahoma just got.
Andrew Anthony, yeah.
Thank you. So they just got a receiver. So maybe that was why we didn't see a commit today. So we'll wait and see there. He did visit Penn State. 6'7" is not like, we're not exaggerating that. Like, that dude is literally 6'7", plays wide receiver, which is honest. I don't think I've ever seen that before. I mean, not tight end, wide receiver, and he's not like, I don't know. When I think of 6'7", I just think of a slow guy. Like, he's not slow. So I encourage you to check out his film. Freddie Roberson, Eastern Washington, guy we should probably mention, another wide receiver. Believe he visited or he plans to visit.
I think Cooper Kupp came from there, if I'm not mistaken.
So you're saying he's the next Cooper Kupp. Sean said it first.
Absolutely.
And then, honestly, I want to mention my favorite guy before I turn it to you, Sean. I really like Romello Brinson from Miami. I don't know how likely it is, but there's a Jaywan Sider effect, and I'm never one to count out Jaywan Sider when it comes to getting a guy. There's a Manny Diaz effect there. I think he would be a huge get, to be honest with you. I like him more than I like Devin Carter. And again, I'm not trying to be sour grapes. I think Devin Carter is a good player, but I like him more. He's not going to be an immediate impact guy, right? Like, he's not going to be a guy who's going to come in and be your number one wide receiver like maybe a Dante Cephas could be. But I like Mr. Romello. And Romello is just, you could have a Romello and a Carmelo in your wide receiver core. Like, that'd be fantastic. So I think they should take advantage of that, Sean.
Yeah, and like you said, there's a Jaywan Sider effect with Brinson. There's also a Manny Diaz effect with Remilio Brinson. His numbers are not going to blow you away from Miami. He only had 7 catches last year for 99 yards, but the talent is there, and this is a guy that the staff themselves are familiar with from the recruiting trail, and yeah, and like I said, the guys that we're looking at now, I mean, I'm not sure if any of them are better than Keandre Lambert-Smith, but the thing I like about a guy like the tall guy, we just said his name, Brunson, the thing I like about him is his height. And Penn State this year, and really going back really in James Franklin's tenure, we haven't had a great or even a really good tall receiver. They've all been like, who's the tallest one? Godwin. Godwin's not that tall, and Zaid Blacknall, and
Robinson?
these guys. That wasn't Franklin, though.
Oh, yeah. Sorry, I missed that part.
Yep. Yes. So, I mean, it just hasn't happened much in the James Franklin era. I mean, obviously, there have been moments for some of the tall guys. Juwan Johnson had the moment against Iowa.
I'm going to say Juwan Johnson and Irv Charles are the only two that really come to mind.
And Irv Charles against Minnesota. But I think that might have been Irv Charles' only catch in his career, it felt like. I mean, he didn't have many others. And, we've had success with the tight ends, but having that guy with speed on the outside is just something we haven't had. So I would love to bring in a taller wide receiver, and that seems to be a focus from James Franklin and the staff. So I would I would wager to say there's probably almost definitely a receiver over 6'3" on the roster next year from the portal.
Yeah, and you mentioned, I don't know at this point either. Keandre Lambert-Smith has really taken the next step. If you, at least what we've seen from the Michigan State game and the Utah game, right? If that continues to trend in that direction, the only one I could see potentially of all these guys we've talked about is Dante Cephas. I think he's the only one that might be able to take that number one spot. But we talked about this before, Shawn, and we have a lot to talk about tonight, so I don't want to dwell too much on it. Penn State didn't really have a number one wide receiver this year. And I know and I understand having a safety blanket guy for a young quarterback is important, but you're going to have, most likely, we haven't officially heard anything from Theo Johnson, but you're most likely going to have a Theo Johnson. You're going to have a Tyler Warren. You're going to have Keandre Lambert-Smith. And although I was never huge, very high on him, Liam Clifford and Drew Aller did seem to have some rapport when they were both on the field together. So, I'm not overly worried about it. I think you got to add at least one, too, like everyone's been saying. I'm not saying you shouldn't, but I'm not to freak out yet. And just remind everybody, they didn't get Chop Robinson until the spring. So there's still this is not, and I said this from the beginning, and people disagreed with me on Twitter. This is not a sprint. This is a marathon. It's a very fluid situation. Things change. People don't know who's actually eligible, who can actually transfer. People don't know, what the money situation. A lot can happen, as you can tell with the Devin Carter case, very, very quickly. So let's
yeah.
The only other thing
can I say one more thing?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. I hear you that to be a successful team, you don't necessarily need a number one receiver. But I think we all, there's been a lot of talk in the past week about Penn State's future, and the expectations are sky high. And I think if the receivers and Aller and the middle linebackers pan out, this should be a playoff team. And I don't say that lightly. My question is, could you win a national championship without a number one receiver? And that's a thought.
Did Georgia have one this year? I don't think so.
I think how do you say his name? McConkey. I think he qualifies. No. I think he does. And they have Brock Bowers, who's the best.
They have Bowers. I'll give you Bowers. But they didn't have a true
We have a Brock Bowers. We do not. I like Theo, but he ain't Brock Bowers.
I agree with that. I'm still stuck on the McConkey thing, because that dude, Liam Clifford, could be McConkey next year. Let's just be honest.
Are you just saying that because they're two white guys?
That dude
He's got so much more speed than Liam Clifford.
That dude. I seriously, the whole season, I don't know if anyone ever covered him. I don't know, the Oregon game at the beginning of the year, and then this national championship. I'm pretty sure he had 4 touchdowns when nobody was ever around him. I'm not saying he's not good. He's obviously really good, but I'm not McConkey. All right, when I think of number one wide receiver, I'm thinking Marv Harrison, right? McConkey and Marv Harrison aren't in the same boat to me.
Okay, all right. If you want to take Georgia out, look at Georgia last year. They had Georgia.
Ronnie Bell. Ronnie Bell to me is a number one guy, right?
And what happened to Michigan? They lost.
So maybe you shouldn't have a number one wide receiver. Maybe you don't want a number one. Ronnie.
I don't know if you could. It's hard. It's hard to win a national championship without a number one receiver.
I agree with that.
LSU Jamar Chase and Justin Jefferson, and then
they didn't even have a
we know the
one.
Bama
They
guys.
had 3 guys. They had Terrence Marshall, Chase,
Terrence
and
Marshall.
Jefferson.
Yeah, I mean, and LSU's kind of an anomaly. Like there's never been as loaded a receiver group as that in my lifetime, at least. I don't think ever. But yeah, it's a hard thing to win a national championship. Could you make the playoffs? I think so. But it's just a hard thing to win that natty. So I just want everybody to chew on that in the offseason a little bit.
No, I mean, it's absolutely true. Like you want to have a guy that you can go to when you absolutely need to. I mean, no doubt about it. Dorito says on YouTube, Liam Clifford, Heisman dark horse. Yeah, look, I mean, yeah, McConkey obviously better than Liam Clifford. My point is just McConkey not on the same level as Ronnie Bell or the kid from TCU or Marv Harrison.
Yeah, definitely not him. Yeah.
I mean, that's all I'm trying to say. Georgia, for everything they did extremely well, they didn't have a Jahan Dotson on their team that was like gonna get the same attention that a guy like that would. But they did everything else well. So show schedule's up. Again, we got a lot more news to break down. We're gonna go recruiting and portal news, although we've already hit some of the portal news. Quickly into the PSU and the NFL, and then boom, the Hardies. We'll get into those. And then we do have 3 fan questions. I'm gonna tell you right now, we had some fantastic fan questions, but some of them were more towards, not all, like, and we still included some of the ones that were like this, but a lot of them were geared towards 2023. And I get that, understand, but we tried to select the ones that were more like in the theme of this show as far as recapping 2022-ish. Not 100% like that, but just kind of keep that in mind. I held on to all the questions, though, that you guys submitted, because there were some juicy ones that we will get to next week as we officially, this is the last episode for the season 2 of Hardcore Penn State Football. We'll be moving on to season 3 starting next week. So I kind of want to bookend this season before saying goodbye. You want to stick with bad news, Shawn? Or you want to go good news?
Let's go good. Well, no, let's stick with bad, and then we could just end with good.
Okay. Bad news, Penn State has still not found a defensive tackle in this class to bring in. They were trying to get Devon Sears, which, again, seemed like they wanted him, but it also seemed like they weren't willing to really go after him. And, after the fact, I had some interesting things I read online and saw that Devon Sears didn't even, and if you're not familiar with the defensive tackle from Texas State, he chose Oklahoma. He didn't even start for Texas State last year. So just keep that in mind. Like he would have been a good depth piece, but I don't think you're going to find, or at least I don't think Devon Sears was going to be a PJ Mustipher or anything like that. He wasn't going to come in and solve our size issues and make everything better in life, but you would have appreciated the depth. Branson Dean, defensive tackle from Purdue that Penn State actually faced, he transferred to Miami. Honestly, I was more upset with Branson Dean than I was Devon Sears.
Me too.
And so Penn State strikes out in both accounts, and they're still potentially looking for a defensive tackle. And honestly, this question is being asked around to all the professional Penn State podcasts out there. It's everywhere. I don't really know if there's a great answer for where Penn State's trying to go next, Shawn, as far as defensive tackle. There's not a bunch of guys out there that check the boxes, right? Like, I mean, if you check all the boxes, you're not going to necessarily be in this situation, right?
Most of the time, yes. Yeah, I hear you on Devon Sears. It's something that Cory and I actually texted about, that, you look at his numbers, they're not going to blow you away. And then, like Cory said, he didn't even start for Texas State. Now, this is not sour grapes, though. Like, the guy, according to PFF, and I think PFF does some good things, and some of their numbers are a little goofy, but it's something to look.
Did you see what their PFF final poll grade teams were? Like, who graded the best?
Yeah, when they go into team stuff, they're awful.
Minnesota was 4th.
They're good.
Yeah.
That's because they have goofy metrics, and
I was laughing at some of that.
Yeah, when they go into team stuff, because it's all metrics, and it's kind of what happens when you put quote unquote non-football people in charge of making football evaluations. And
those
sometimes
damn
it's
non-football
good,
football people. Can't stand them.
sometimes it's good. Sometimes the evaluations are interesting, and sometimes they're trash because I'm not even convinced these people watch the games. And but knowing that, Davon Sears ranked in the top 25 in both run defense grades and rushing the quarterback and graded rushing the quarterback. So that's something to keep in mind. But I don't think it's the end of the world that we didn't get him. Would I have liked to have him? Sure. But I'm going to be honest with you. Are we 100% positive he wasn't better than a guy like a guy that we just lost, Torma Malba? I don't know. He didn't start at Texas State. Maybe Malba would be able to start at Texas State. So it's just something to keep in mind. But I hear you with not getting Dean from Purdue. He was a guy that we talked about going into the Purdue game and after the Purdue game. Really, really good player, but we weren't able to reel him in. And yeah, I think I would say I'm more concerned about defensive tackle than receiver, because receivers are kind of a dime a dozen in the portal, and there's going to be more of them that leave their schools between now and the spring. But to find a guy who's good enough to play at the Big Ten level and be productive at a Big Ten level and could help you win a Big Ten championship and go beyond at 6'3" plus, 6'2" plus, and 290, 300 plus pounds, it's harder to find. So we got to really hope that somebody hits the portal and James Franklin's able to reel him in, because I just don't see anybody who can replace PJ Mustipher on this roster. No disrespect to the guys we have. I like the defensive tackle room, but need some beef.
Yeah, I will say this. The way Manny Diaz schemes up front, he's not going to run a bunch of situations that require having a beef eater up front, right? Like, they slant a bunch, they stunt a bunch. Sometimes, apparently, they might slant a couple guys outside more than we think they should, or whatever the case may be. But I agree. I think I would rather take a defensive tackle before a wide receiver at this point. Speaking of that, Malba, like you said, for Torma Malba, enters the transfer portal. He's not the only one. I wanted to also mention linebacker Cody Romano, with 1 year of eligibility, enters the transfer portal as well. So those two guys went. And just to wrap up the bad news, if you will, offensive lineman, guard, tackle, whatever you want to call him, Bryce Effner has retired from football. Not going to the NFL, could have came back for another year. Bryce Effner, I don't have him winning an award tonight, Shawn, but there were a couple in my mind he was a nomination for. In my mind. Hint, hint, nudge, nudge.
You might hear Big Slab's name again tonight.
We will miss the Big Slab nickname.
We will miss Big Slab.
If it wasn't for this episode being titled The Hardies, it was going to be something about the slab being gone. But no, in all seriousness, look, I think Audrey Snyder had a good article today about Penn State football and the offensive line. And imagine how all the injuries that the Penn State offensive line suffered this year. It didn't even seem like a lot because they actually had guys to replace them with. Well, Bryce Effner was one of those guys. I would argue Bryce Effner is probably the best offensive lineman this season at getting to the next level. The dude was constantly getting to linebackers. He was constantly getting to safeties. I believe, don't quote me on this, but I believe on a Katron Allen catch and run in the Indiana game, he is all the way down the field running somebody down just because. They're going to miss Bryce Effner. I mean, he wasn't a great pass protector, but I thought he was a above average, really good run blocker, and he could play guard and he could play tackle. And was he going to be a starter next year? No, right? Like, you got Fashanu coming back, you got Wallace coming back, you got Tangwall coming back, you got Wormley coming back, and you have Drew Shelton. But the dude was, in a way, irreplaceable when it's all said and done because injuries happen. So huge loss there for Penn State. I can't stress enough, and then we're going to talk a little bit more about this later in the show, but guys like Bryce Effner, Sal Wormley, Juice Scruggs, they did a lot for this team. People are going to talk about Nick Singleton and Katron Allen and Sean Clifford, but those three guys especially that stayed healthy were the nucleus to this offense for most of the season.
Okay, I thought you knew something about Wormley, like, because you named a lot of guys not coming back. You were just talking about people who kept this thing stable. That makes sense. Yeah, Effner was a glue guy, right? And glue guys help you win big games and help mitigate losses. And losing Olu and losing Wallace, I mean, we won the Rose Bowl. Well, Wallace was back, but Effner started. Like, losing your two starting tackles and winning the Rose Bowl, that's a huge testament to the depth that you had. And Effner is kind of the classic college football player in a way. Just a guy who he's not going to play in the NFL. He retired and just kind of kept plugging away and got beat up a little bit and, had rough moments, but he also made up for it in a lot of ways and really helped, along with Juice Scruggs, really helped stabilize the line. He was one of the only two. Him and Juice were the only two all year who play a lot in the line who didn't get injured. And that stability, that senior leadership that they brought, that's hard to replace. And being unselfish, being okay with coming off the bench as a senior, I mean, you have to really value that. And you have to value a guy with a great nickname. And Big Slab is right up there with the best nicknames. So rest in peace, Big Slab, as a football player, and we'll miss you.
Yeah, I was just so poetic. I mean, there's no other way to say it, right? I mean, that was just fantastic. Okay, all the bad news, I believe, so I'm checking my list here, is done. So the bad news is over. If you decided not to listen because you don't want to listen to the bad news, you can come back now. The bad news.
Some really good news. Penn State is taking it to Indiana right
now. Are they?
Now.
I knew they were up. They're up 11 at a half.
Yeah, it's 72-55.
Yeah, that one's over, I think.
Yeah, there's only.
I know they let Iowa. I know they let Iowa come back, but this one's probably. It's only 6 minutes. Yeah, that one's. It's all she wrote, boys. That's fantastic. That's what Penn State needed. Get back to 500 for in conference play. Early enrollees have early enrolled. 11 of them. I can throw that on the screen for you guys. I'll have to go to a different one here, but I'll throw that up for the people on YouTube, and I will read them potentially as well whenever it pops up. Mega Barnwell, Alex Burkmeyer, Tony Rojas, Elliot Washington, Anthony Donka, Joey Schlaffer, Lamont Payne, Jackson Smolik, Javen Williams, Zion Tracy, and Tamir Robinson have all joined there. I just do not know why I cannot say Schlaffer the first time. Like it chokes me up almost immediately, and I really don't know. I really don't know why, but it does. The other thing should go away in a second. Lamont Payne was on a 24/7 podcast today. He's actually rooming with Javen Williams. I don't know where all the other guys and who they're rooming with, but I was surprised a little bit by Javen Williams and Lamont Payne, two guys that were in a class pretty early, but I thought maybe, I don't know if Lamont Payne's going to be able to eat. I mean, just Javen Williams, I wouldn't want to share a kitchen with a Division I offensive lineman, especially one that is going to want to be putting on some weight here in next year. So, I mean, there's a Nutrigrain bar in the cupboard like that already has someone else's name written all over it. But they have enrolled, as well as the transfers. Storm Duck, can't forget about Storm Duck, defensive back from North Carolina. Maybe it's a good thing Devin Carter's not coming, because now we don't have to worry about the in-state rivalry between Devin Carter and Storm Duck. That doesn't have to be a problem anymore. But Storm Duck arrived. Bradley Thompson, which I can officially say, although Sean Fitz kind of confused me. He said Thompson has 1 year of eligibility left, but then he kind of said it could be 2. So I'm assuming that means he redshirts. I'm not sure. I don't know what that means, but basically he has one. I think he has 1 year of playing ability left, I think is what he meant to say. With the punter from Australia. We weren't sure on that before, so I wanted to confirm that. Alex Felkins, the kicker from Columbia, was also the additional addition that we've mentioned a couple times. Those guys, I mean, all 3 of those guys could seriously contribute next year. So those are 3 guys, we need to talk about at least a little bit, Sean.
Yeah. Specialists, like, you don't really bring in guys that can only play 1 to 2 years at a specialist position if you don't think that they're going to have at least a pretty good shot to play. So I think there's definitely going to be competition at the kicker and punter positions. And it's going to be kind of fun to talk about, I think. And there was some competition last year at kicker, but I mean, I don't, maybe it wasn't that serious, but maybe they were going to give it to Pinniger the whole time. I don't know, but it should be fun. There's definitely going to be a new face or 2. And yeah, Storm Duck. Storm Duck has in my mind, a very good chance to start next year. It'll be good. It'll be good to see the competition between him and Johnny Dixon at that corner spot opposite of Kalen King. And he has an awesome name too. So we have that going for us. I'm happy about the early enrollees that all of our offensive linemen are enrolling. I like having the big guys on campus, especially just because you're changing your body a lot. And most of the time, your body's not going to be ready for the fall. And look, there are exceptions to the rule. Drew Shelton, I don't even think he enrolled early last year, but he did a very good job of staying in shape, getting into college shape in a short period of time. And that's a huge testament to him. But that's the exception. That's not the rule. And I like that those guys are going to be able to get into a college weight program in the winter and, be able to be molded into what Penn State wants them to be. Because Burkmeyer and Williams, as much as we love those guys, they do need to add weight and to be actually ready to play. So that's very encouraging. I'm happy Smolik is going to be here. He's probably going to be the 3rd string quarterback, if I had to guess, next year. So if you're a Miami Dolphins fan, I mean, you got to be ready for 3rd string. If you're a 3rd string quarterback, you got to be ready to play. And I hope he's more ready to play than Skylar Thompson was, because he looks like a lost puppy out there. So yeah, that's kind of my thoughts on the early enrollee situation.
Yeah, and I think we can talk more about those guys moving forward. I think next episode would be a good opportunity to really kind of talk about those guys a little bit more. Plenty of time for that. So, yeah, I think a lot of people are forgetting about Bo Prabula a little bit, but we won't go down that road today, Sean, as much as I want to. I do want to talk about 3 guys that decided to come back. And that is, we'll start with the big one. Linebacker Curtis Jacobs was quiet, radio noise for a little bit there, but he is coming back and didn't say very much about it. Literally just said, I'm back. It wasn't a long paragraph. Wasn't one of those graphics that has a bunch going on. Just simply, I'm back. I was gone, but now I'm back. I mean, Curtis Jacobs coming back. Dvon Ellies, defensive tackle, coming back. So, of all the bad things about defensive tackles and the transfer portal, et cetera, not getting a guy, you do get a guy back in Dvon Ellies who, yes, isn't the biggest guy in the world, but has played a lot of football already for Penn State. You really couldn't convince me that Sears or Dean were necessarily better than Ellies, right? So, I, as much as I think they add depth, it's a huge get to get Ellies back. And then finally, Sean, I'm excited because he was my favorite player than this last season. Defensive end Adisa Isaac decides to return to Penn State. And I had the thought of, he tore his Achilles, right, over a year ago. This dude played last season basically at the same amount of strength that he had 2 years ago because he used all that time to rehab. Well, now he's going to finally have a year to add to his strength, add to his repertoire. I'm really excited to see what Adisa Isaac can do next year. I mean, it's kind of scary based off what we saw in the Rose Bowl. We said this on the last episode, but I thought his best game was in the Rose Bowl against Utah. Now he has a full offseason to get even stronger. I mean, it's pretty exciting. I mean, those are three. I don't want to say they're all three super duper big pieces, but those are three very positive features to this defense moving forward.
Yeah, I mean, I think two of them are huge pieces. Curtis Jacobs, we said going into last year that he was the most important guy on defense. And, maybe he wasn't as great as, the Porter or Jair Brown, but he was the most important because, especially going into the year, there was no clear-cut replacement for Curtis Jacobs. Like, when Curtis Jacobs went down, we were like, oh, no. And to get him back, that turns what was seen as a weakness into a definite strength, because you have two of probably, in my mind, the top 10 linebackers in the conference on your team, maybe even higher, maybe two of the top 8 linebackers in the Big Ten, and they're on your team. And from something that I think I'm going to be hammering a lot on in this offseason is leadership. And he's a guy who's a senior. Now, I think he has to be more vocal than he's been, but he has a presence. He's seen a lot. He's been on teams that have struggled, and he's been on teams that have been successful. So he's been through, he's had the full experience at Penn State, and I think it's huge to get him back. I agree with you on Adisa Isaac. He was playing his best football at the end of the season. And there were questions about the team overall, because it seemed like they were getting better as the season went on, but how much of that was due to the competition and how much of that was reality that they were getting better? Well, they proved in the Utah game where they played their best, in my mind, especially when you consider the competition we played, the best game of the season the best game of the season. And Adisa Isaac was part of that. Adisa Isaac peaked against Utah. So you're really hoping he can continue to build off of that now that it seems like he has his sea legs back and that he has his speed back. And I want to say this about Dvon Ellies. Hardcore Penn State Football reported that he was back. The Collegian did not have the story first. We had the story first. Specifically, Corey Listoki had the story first. So everybody clap it up for Corey and his Big J journalism.
Appreciate that, Shawn. You know how much I take this job seriously. Although many people did not want, I don't think anyone gave us credit for it.
No, nobody did. Nobody. People gave the Collegian credit. We were like, we beat the Collegian.
Yeah. Whatever. What are you going to do about it?
Yes, but that's the reality. And I'm not making this up either, that this is true.
Yeah. Yeah, no, people, I think when we tweeted it and we put it on Instagram, whatever, there was definitely probably a pause, right? People were like, are these guys
Which
for
I
real?
understand.
Yeah, absolutely. But that when Dvon retweeted, I think that provided some level of, what's the word? It's not, I guess it would be ethos,
credibility.
Right? Is ethos credibility? I think so.
Sure.
All right. We have a couple other things real quick. Jawan Sider, co-offensive coordinator, running backs coach, and now assistant head coach. Got the additional title.
I thought you were breaking some news live.
No, sorry.
When you just brought his name up out of the clear blue sky.
Yeah, I didn't want you to pee your pants. No, I'm assuming that comes with a little bit of a pay raise. So congrats to Mr. Sider on that. If he wants to share it with us, more than welcome to. Andy Frank, who was the director of player personnel, is now like the general manager of player personnel, basically. I don't really know how much his responsibilities are going to change. Andy Frank has been with James Franklin since he got here. I'm sure that comes with a pay raise. And Kenny Sanders, who was like the recruiting coordinator, right? He is now the director of player personnel. So he gets kind of a promotion there as well, keeping all those guys happy. I think some of the recruiting guys below them also kind of got a pay raise and a title change there. So just some things that don't really matter, but I wanted to mention because they are paying some people a little bit more money, which is always good to see after a successful season, Shawn.
And you have to have it because you don't want a ton of turnover for after a successful season in any, like, Kenny Sanders is probably the most important non-coach on staff. Like, he is so great at his job. So, and when he left for Oregon, it was really, his loss was really, he was really missed in the recruiting aspect of things. And yeah, I mean, a lot of those titles, specifically Andy Frank, I mean, Andy Frank's promotion, congratulations. It sounds like a good way to make an extra few $1,000s a year, which I love to see. And that's how you keep people happy, and that's how you keep them around. So, and it's, like I said, it's important to keep staffs together. So congratulations to those guys.
I wouldn't be against a couple $1,000 more a year, personally.
Me neither. Kelly Services, if you hear this.
Officially, Penn State's going to beat Indiana, by the way, in basketball. Penn State 18 threes, which is tied for the school record in a single game. They shot 54% from the field, which is just incredible when half of your shots go in. We are not a football or a basketball podcast. We are a football podcast, but I know some of you guys probably care at least a little bit. So there you go. Okay, top shelf news, I believe, is over, Shawn. I think we're good there. Quickly, Penn State in the NFL. Not actually a bunch to talk about. It wasn't a great. It was better than last week, I should say, but still wasn't great. But a couple notables. Jaquan Brisker was the first safety since 2020 when Micah Fitzpatrick led the, I think it was the Steelers at the time. I don't know if he was with the Steelers or not, but whoever he was with led that team in sacks. Jaquan Brisker becomes the second Dolphins. Safety ever. Was it with the Dolphins?
Yep.
Okay, there you go.
Yeah.
Jaquan Brisker comes the second safety, I believe, ever to lead a team in sacks behind Fitzpatrick. So that was cool to see. He had 10 tackles in his season finale. Pretty cool. It's almost like we said Brisker was going to be something good, Shawn.
I mean, it's almost like it, and it's almost like we said he should be taken in the first round, and he should have. But it's going to be cool, too, that, well, I think for him, I'm kind of happy that they're going to have the number one pick because that's just a team that needs talent. So going to be interesting to see what they do with Justin Fields. And, you know, Mike and I were actually talking last night, and, like, I think the Bears, maybe they think about trading Justin Fields and taking Bryce Young one. Just an idea.
I don't like it. Just build around him. I thought he had some good moments.
He did, but I have a feeling he's going to be a guy that puts up a bunch of fantasy yards, but could you win a Super Bowl with him? I'm not that big into mobile quarterbacks at the NFL level.
I don't know how much Bryce Young is different than Justin Fields.
Oh, he's a much better passer.
I guess.
This is the Chicago Bears.
I wouldn't say much better.
Chicago Bears podcast. I think so. And you can get more picks for him to build around.
It's all about the picks. Jahan Dotson, 3 catches, 72 yards. Chris Godwin, 6 catches, 55 yards. Mike Gesicki, 4 catches, 46 yards. Your Dolphins are in the playoffs. I wanted to give you that moment, Shawn. I know Tua's not playing. I don't know how that makes you feel, but, I mean, this is exciting for you guys nonetheless.
Sure. I mean, it's better to make the playoffs than not to make the playoffs, but it's going to be a typical Dolphins playoff experience where we just get ran out of the stadium. It was going to be that way as soon as Tua wasn't available, and I'm happy Tua's not playing personally. I think it would have been irresponsible to him as a person, and really irresponsible for the organization to play him, because if he gets, I mean, whatever you want to say, the thing against Buffalo was, if it was a concussion, if it wasn't, he's had 3 brain injuries, 2 of them definite concussions in 3 months. So to get a 4th, I mean, that's possibly career ending. So I think it's the right thing not to play him. But we're going to get butchered this week by the Buffalo Bills. But yeah, Mike Gesicki finally back involved with the offense, which is good to see.
That was some inspiring stuff there from Sean Kane. Last one I really
if I did a Hardcore Dolphins podcast, it would be very depressing most of the
time. Adrian Amos, I wanted to mention too, 6 tackles in their season finale, but he finished second on the team with 96. So good for him there. The tackling machine over there. But that's about it. Miles Sanders, Saquon playoff game. So that's cool. That'll be exciting to see.
That is awesome. I'm happy to see him finally, have a team that could get to the playoffs. So that's awesome.
And Trace McSorley,
I think they're going to win this week.
Trace McSorley did play, and he threw another pick, by the way. Not having a great. He's not inspiring much confidence, I guess is the best way to say it.
I wonder if he likes maple syrup and Mounties and saying "A." Because I think it's time to start thinking about Canada, and that's not a bad thing. I think he could play a lot of football still, but I think he's got to start looking north of the border.
Speaking of that, Tommy Stevens, I think, had I don't know what the stat was, but had the most rushing touchdowns for a quarterback in CFL, I think, this past season.
Yeah, there you go. I mean, that's awesome. Tommy's really excelling up there. And I think of Tommy as a guy that could succeed in the NFL and the CFL, just knowing his skill set. And Trace is very simple. Trace has, I mean, I always thought Tommy had a better arm than Trace, but just his style of play, it translates well to CFL. Guy like Doug Flutie played a long time up there, and fellow, not so tall guy with, pretty good arm, not a great arm, played a long time. So I would like to see Trace maybe kick the tires on going up there.
All right, we're done with that. Okay. We actually were supposed to do the recruiting portal stuff. We did the portal stuff already. Chimdi Ono, offensive tackle, 2023 class. We've mentioned him on a show a couple times. Visited Rutgers. I believe has now visited Penn State. He's got a Final Four of, let me see if I can remember this off the top of my head, Rutgers, Penn State, Michigan State, and Ole Miss, I believe. And I think Penn State's is looking pretty good for him. So that's a name to definitely remember. The 2023 class is not over, ladies and gentlemen. Chimdi Ono is the guy to pay attention to there. I just love, because when he gives up a sack, you're going to say, oh, no. I mean, that's just going to be fantastic. So looking forward, hopefully not to that happening a bunch. But, I mean, how can you not laugh when that does happen the first time? Oh, no.
That'll be one of the things at the time I probably won't find funny, but if an hour later, I will. He's somebody to look out for. I like where Penn State sits with him personally, and it's Penn State's having their junior day this weekend. They have a lot of upcoming juniors. These guys coming on the campus, so that'll be something to look out for. It's going to be cold in State College, which it's January, but it's been kind of balmy up here for Pennsylvania weather. It's been in the 40s, it's been in the 50s a couple of days, but it looks like we're going to be having some typical January weather for the weekend.
That's lovely. Yeah, I don't think anyone is on, based off of what I've read and seen, I don't think anyone is on commit watch, but you never know. There's a bunch of 2024 guys there. I mean, we're not look, 24/7 Sports on 3 are going to give you the list that you want to see. We're not going to do that this episode. I will say this, since I told this 2 weeks ago, but if you did not listen 2 weeks ago or last week, next week episode, very recruiting centric. We're going to talk 2023 class. We're going to start talking 2024 class a bunch. So if you're just salivating for 2024 class news, just hang on tight. We're getting there, but we want to wrap up the show and give, I think in this world and where college football is like next. Let's enjoy this. Let's enjoy the show. Let's enjoy the award show. Damn it. Yeah, there's some guys that are coming in the 2024 class that were here for the whiteout. There's guys that have been here. Some really high end guys that are coming for the second time or the third time. And I don't want to say, and this is unofficial stuff. I wanted to make that clear. Junior Day is an unofficial visit day. So anyone who's coming is coming on their own dime, which I think is important to say, because these guys have decided to come to State College in the beginning of January because they want to. No one is putting a gun to their head and saying you have to come to State College in January when it's awful weather. These kids want to come and enjoy it. And I think some of these guys don't want to miss it. So take that for what it is. I don't think they're going to have like 60 people there, but I think they're going to have a solid, there's 2 dates, right? This week and the next. Between both of them, there's going to be a bunch of guys there to pay attention to moving forward. And we'll cover that much, much more in depth starting next week.
Yeah, and it's fun for the guys to get up here. Like Penn State really makes the most out of things like out of junior days and their camps. And what do we always say? Penn State is one of those places. It's so important. You got to get kids. You got to get kids here. And usually when you get kids here, the staff tends to roll out the red carpet for them, even when it's not an official visit, something like a junior day. And they make you feel like you're part of the team already. So anybody who you get up to junior day, you feel like you have a chance at. So we're going to be looking to see who makes the trip. And look, it's only Wednesday. There are guys that aren't going to make the trip. There are guys that are going to come super last minute. That's just kind of nature of the beast. So it's going to be interesting to see who makes it up this weekend.
Yeah. Like I said, we'll talk more about it. And also it'll be good to be able to talk about some of this, like the outcome of some of what happens this weekend next week as well. So we're not kind of putting the horse before the cart, or the cart before the horse. You want to put the horse before the cart.
I hope the horse is ahead of the cart. Yes.
Yeah. Otherwise you're not going to go anywhere. Okay. Are we ready?
I'm ready.
For the Hardies. Drum roll. I don't know, some cinematic music. Or like, I'm just thinking like the Gladiator song coming in. Oh no, Shadow. Oh no, Shadow. Yeah. I don't know.
That's great, Corey. I love that.
So, for those on YouTube, you can see the list of the awards. We are going to just list them all out, what we're going to give out tonight. And this is like pretty big deal. Like, I haven't spoken with any of the players on this or the coaches, but I'm hearing rumblings around State College that people are pretty excited to get these awards tonight. Like, people are on the edge of their seat hoping that they're going to come away with some of these awards. So, I mean, it's a big deal.
They're waiting with bated breath in State College. I heard there's some watch parties going on.
Keep your name out of your damn... Yeah, I don't know. Hopefully we don't have any of those situations tonight.
I hope not.
So we have, I'm just going to list in the order we're going to go through them. And by the way, there's no level of importance. These were completely put together in the level of when I thought of them. So all of them are equally as important. We have the Premature Maturation Award, which you can think of that any way you want to. Basically given to the award that maybe somebody came out before expected, or maybe came onto the scene before you were expected. We have the Getting Offensive Award. Obviously, offensive, you could argue maybe Offensive Player of the Year, but maybe it's just someone that pissed you off. I don't know. The Mr. Dependable, that's pretty obvious, right? Dependable, someone you can rely on. The Havoc Award, which I just loved because I feel like it's a very Manny Diaz themed thing there. The We're Gonna Miss You Award, which obviously is going to be to somebody that or something that we're gonna miss. Wow, we were wrong award. Obviously, I'm never wrong, so Sean's gonna probably have to take the reins on this one. The JoeMo Assistant Coach of the Year Award. That one speaks for itself. The All Right Award, which will be given to 3 players that really were better than all right? Because I'm a huge Matthew. I'm going to be honest with you guys. I'm a huge Matthew McConaughey fan. Just huge Matthew McConaughey fan. And so the All Right Award is not necessarily like 3 guys that were all right or 3 coaches that were all right. They're more like above average, but maybe weren't spectacular. Like you weren't going to give them necessarily MVP per se. Maybe you would have. It's whatever you want it to be. But 3 guys or girls, I guess. I don't know. Give it to Beth Mullins. I don't know. And then finally, the Samwise Gamgee Award, which is the Unsung Hero Award. And I have to preface this by saying that Sean Kane has not watched The Lord of the Rings, which the laundry list of movies, Sean, that you have to watch this offseason. When you didn't answer last week's question I had for you with, I got to catch up on Semi-Pro, I got to catch up on all the movies I haven't seen that you told me to watch, you have to watch The Lord of the Rings this like before March. Like I'm giving you homework for that. So you need to watch. I don't even care if you watch The Hobbit. Well, you need to watch the 3 Lord of the Rings movies, and you need to appreciate them and give it the respect it's deserved.
Aren't they all like 4 hours long?
I don't care, Sean. You watch the Penn State football game every year or every week that's 4 hours long. You can watch one every week, every Sunday.
Yeah. I mean,
right?
Maybe.
Right? No, maybe. Seriously, you're sitting down and watching these. Otherwise, we can't give out the Samwise Gamgee Award. We talk about credibility. We lose our credibility when half of us haven't watched that movie.
You know what I haven't watched that I don't know for sure, but I know Corey watched? Game of Thrones. Never seen Game of Thrones. And it seems very similar to that. But would I be correct on that, Corey?
I am going to be careful with my words here because I do not want to step on eggshell. I'm a tiptoe around eggshells here a little bit and just say no. And for anyone out there who was offended by what Sean just said, I apologize. Please don't leave us a 1-star review.
You know why I didn't see Game of Thrones? Because the Game of Thrones fans ruined it for me. Every Sunday night, I go to Twitter and they're just talking about the magical dragon of, I don't know, Eastern whatever. And I was just like, you know what? I'm not watching the show now.
Eastern whatever.
Yeah. So it may be like 3 years, maybe I'll give it a shot. But it's got to be way after everybody else has watched it. I'm also kind of a hipster, so you also have to take that into account. But I will give Lord of the Rings a shot because I love Star Wars, so I like stuff like that. I know they're completely different, but I don't need everything like real super reality based.
Oh God. I'm not letting you. You're not even allowed to talk during a Samwise Gamgee Award presentation.
Yeah, because Corey texted me, we're going to call it the Samwise Gamgee Award. And I was like, I had to Google it. I was like, I don't know who this guy is. And I was like, oh, yeah, never saw Lord of the Rings.
You know, it was almost a year ago when I asked you to join this podcast, right?
Yeah.
Not quite. Not quite, but almost. And this is the first time in that year where I almost regret it after some of the things you've said tonight about Lord of the Rings.
Wow. I just said that I never saw it.
It's hurting me. All right. Well, I'm just gonna ignore a lot of that stuff. All right, we're gonna start at the top. Premature Maturation Award. Shawn, who would you like to give this to? And I should say, Shawn and I have not talked about who we have nominated. So,
yeah, I'm gonna go Abdul Carter. I did not expect Abdul Carter to be ready to play better than Micah Parsons played his freshman year. Like, you look at the linebackers that we've had over the years, and we've had obviously a ton of great ones, going back to Jack Ham and Dennis Onkot's back and way back. But none of these guys, LeVar, Kozlowski, Sean Lee, Shane Conlon, none of them were as good as Abdul Carter was his freshman year. And when you have something unprecedented like that, I mean, where there's basically no comparison between him and anybody else their freshman year, I mean, it's got to be him. And that's why I gave him the slight edge over Nick Singleton and Katron Allen, because I've seen guys come in college ready before at the running back position, and they were super, super impressive. I'm not taking anything away from them, but I think seeing Abdul Carter and seeing how ready he was really from the jump, I think it's got to be him.
Yeah, we are in agreement. That's who I had too. So that's not even much of a debate there. I agree with you 100%. I wanted to give you some love here if I can find it, because you did have Abdul Carter higher than most. I mean, that was a guy you spoke about quite a bit. I went all the way back to my preview notes from August, which I wrote a lot back then compared to what I write about now. But let me see if I can find something here that you said. I'm not sure if I will. Well, we questioned it. We said, do they have depth? And then I put a little arrow and I said, linebacker Abdul Carter. And I said, Dom DeLuca. So we must have talked about it to some degree.
Yeah, I mean, I liked Abdul Carter coming in, but I had no idea he was going to be as good as he was.
Yeah,
none.
Right.
I did not expect that at all.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. I mean, that's why I had him here too, right? I mean, he was not just good, right? He was explosive. He made a difference in the game. And I think he was noticeable, right? You don't have to be a big football fan to know, oh, that guy number 11, he's pretty good. The closing speed, he played faster and faster as the season went on. I mean, there's no doubt about it. You come in as a freshman and at a linebacker position, right? And do what you're able to do. And mind you, he did not early enroll. He came in the summer and was able to do this. So that's just phenomenal to me. So we are in a 100% agreement. I didn't even write anything else. I just wrote Abdul Carter and moved on. So congratulations, Abdul Carter. You have won the inaugural Premature Maturation Award. Congratulations.
Maybe we could call it the Double Entendre Award next year.
We could call it the Abdul Carter Award moving forward.
We could name it after him. That's true.
All right, Getting Offensive Award. We didn't really have any this didn't necessarily have to be MVP, although I kind of took it as such. And I went with Nick Singleton, Shawn. Who did you have?
Nick Singleton.
Okay. I mean, honestly, I could have got a little flirtatious here and I could have went a different way, but Nick Singleton, honestly, I think he solidified his award tonight with how he performed in the Rose Bowl. I don't think it was a done deal for him winning the Getting Offensive Award until he did what he did in the Rose Bowl. Like, you could say maybe Sean Clifford, right? Or maybe someone on the offensive line, but what he was able to do at the end, $120, I think he was at 13 yards per carry in the Rose Bowl against what we told everybody was not an elite rush defense. He was the dynamite that Penn State needed this year. He put Auburn out into the prairie. Like, he did a lot of things great. It wasn't perfect, He had the kick return against Rutgers. The only game he really didn't have a fantastic day in was the Ohio State and Michigan game, which no one had a good day against Michigan. Katron Allen had kind of a better day against Ohio State, but otherwise he was right there. And so, I mean, look, when you break records that he broke as a true freshman running the ball, it's not a hard one for me, Shawn.
Yeah, I think he could go in a couple of different directions, but not too many. But yeah, I basically agree with everything Cory said. And he gave you something that this offense hadn't had since Jeremy Brown, and that's just that home run ability. And he showed it against Ohio. He didn't really show it much against Purdue. He did a little bit. He had some nice runs, but just when you saw it against Ohio, you're like, this is what we needed. Like this is how I win. And it was something that was sorely missed, and it was awesome that he was able to provide it for us. And he was worth the hype. And that's another thing that you have to wonder, especially a guy who, didn't come in from IMG Academy, played high school football in Pennsylvania, and was ready out of the box, and had an awesome freshman year. And he's going to be playing football for a long, long time, folks. There he is in the Rose Bowl for those of you watching on YouTube. We're going to be seeing that run for, again, long time. Yeah,
no, we're in agreement there. I don't think we need to hold people up on that. I think most people would agree with that. People aren't going to freak out about that. So we agree there. Congratulations to Nick Singleton winning the Get Offensive Hardies Award. That's 2 freshmen, Shawn, by the way, that have taken home the award so far. Freshmen are 2 for 2. Just saying.
Yeah. I mean, something to be excited about for next year.
17 freshmen, by the way, played this year. A bunch of them burned their red shirts. It's just something else to keep in mind as we move forward. Mr. Dependable is the next award we're giving away. Somebody you can depend on. Somebody you can rely on. And, Shawn, this one was tough for me. And it was so tough, I'm going to let you go first.
Yeah, this was one of the toughest ones. The first 2, I mean, they weren't that bad, but I almost went in a few different directions. I almost said Keziah Izzard, actually, because I don't remember him playing a bad game. He just was kind of solid every week. But I think I'm going to go Kalen King. And he was, in my mind, the maybe better than Joey Porter. And that's saying a lot. And I just thought he brought it every week. And there were times where, the cornerback position, you're designed to get beat. Like the way football is played, especially now, you're designed to get beat at corner. And did he get beat a couple times? He did. But I think it's very, it says a lot about him that Purdue kept throwing at Joey Porter Jr., who's going to be a first-round pick in our mind in the upcoming draft. And they shied away from throwing at Kalen King. And that's something that we kind of saw throughout the year. So I think that speaks a lot to Kalen King's ability. So that's why I went with him.
You convinced me. I was gonna pick someone else.
Ooh.
But I like Kalen King more. So I'm gonna agree with you. I'm gonna go with Kalen King. You've convinced me. So the person I was gonna have was Olu Fashanu, but he didn't play half the season.
I considered him too, and that's why I didn't pick him, because we didn't have him.
So but when he's out there, you could rely on him not to give up the blind side, which, look, I don't want to get too ahead of myself for next year's Hardies Awards, but Olu Fashanu could be a potential lock for Mr. Dependable next year. I don't want to get ahead of myself, but this year I agree with you. I think Kalen King deserves it. I think he, when you have a guy like Joey Porter Jr. on one side, everyone wants to go to the other side. And Kalen King technically didn't even start every game, right? But when he was out there, he was a force to be reckoned with. It made people think twice about if they should even throw the ball at all. So, and he's a student of the game, right? We talked about this interception against Utah. He knew the out route was I shouldn't call it an out route, but the inside out route was coming, and he played it better than the receiver did. Big fan of Kalen King. I agree with you, Sean. Wasn't who I was going to go with originally, but you convinced me. Congratulations to Kalen King. You've won the Hardies Award, Mr. Dependable. Congratulations. Okay. Let's go to the next award here. I was thinking about stopping real quick. We have the poll questions I want to talk about too that we did on Twitter. So I'm going to go halfway through, then we're going to talk poll questions, then we're going to come back to the awards. But let's go to the Havoc Award, Sean. No real description given, but I mean, what causes havoc, right? What do you like to see when it comes to havoc? I feel like we're probably on the same page here. I'm going to go ahead and tell you I went with Chop Robinson as the Havoc Player of the Year. Is that who you had, Sean?
I knew you were going to pick Chop Robinson, and I also picked Chop Robinson.
Smart man. Smart man.
Yep.
Didn't have a bunch of sacks, but I'm pretty sure he was held every single play of every single game. This dude consistently, I know for a fact, he forced the most amount of holding penalties on the opposing team by any defender. Not even close. I think he averaged like one a game at some point. So Chop Robinson, I mean, go back and look at this interception. Yeah, this interception. Look, who's in Cam Rising's face? Chop Robinson. Who he's just constantly there. He was a constant presence the entire season. Wasn't like crazy good against the run, but he was there. And although he didn't get a bunch of sacks, he was in people's faces the entire season. And he's still young. He's still growing. Really looking forward to what he can put together a full year in Penn State's weight room. Again, people, he did not get there until the late spring, summer. So this guy hasn't been at Penn State for a full year yet. Very excited to see what could happen with Chop Robinson moving forward.
Yeah, again, he's one of those guys, like, if you watch the game every week, like, actually, like, watch what's happening, I mean, he just jumps off the screen at you. And, yeah, his numbers are good. They're really good. He had 4 sacks, 8.5 tackles for loss, forced fumble recovery. I mean, those are really good stats. But I think he was even better than those. So just because if you watch every week, you see what he's able to do. You see how he can create holding. You can see how he creates havoc. It's got to be Chop Robinson in my mind.
We're going to do one more award, then we're going to talk Twitter poll questions. And then we'll finish up the last 4. Then we'll do some fan questions and we'll get out of here. The next award, I'm sorry. Congratulations to Chop Robinson winning the inaugural Hardies Havoc Award. You've earned it. Maybe like in the future we can get like $20 like chili gift cards for the players. Or
sure.
Whatever.
Does it have to be Chili's?
I don't know. Whatever. No, it could be sheets. I don't care.
So, funny story, but so Chili's, I think the nearest one's Altoona. When I was in school, we actually drove to Chili's for our friend Alex's birthday. Fun fact.
Used to be a Chili's in State College, but whatever.
Yeah, I think I've heard that before.
Yeah, where Champs is.
Right. Yeah, new Champs.
Yes.
I'm still a boomer and prefer old Champs, so.
The next award, the Hardies Award Show. We're gonna miss you award. Sean, I think we're on the same page, but I think you thought maybe we weren't going to be on the same page. Who do you have for the We're Going to Miss You award?
I have Tig Brown. I don't think you could replace a guy like him. He just did so much for your defense. Manny lined him up everywhere, including the defensive line. So I don't think you replace a guy like Tig. And you could go with just general leadership and say you're going to miss that, but I wanted to give it to a specific guy. And I mean, there were a lot. I love the senior class, just a lot of it because of the character of it. And Tig just got it done on a week-to-week basis and did a little bit of everything. And yeah, gonna really, really miss that guy.
Did you think I was going to go Sean Clifford?
I had a feeling you were going to go Sean Clifford, but I also know you love Tig Brown, so I kind of thought you might go in that direction.
Yeah, you're right. I'm going with Tig Brown as well. There's so many plays that I could show you that I was just in love with this dude. I was trying to find the one that you mentioned because I love that play against Michigan. It was one of the few things that I loved about it, but I am struggling to do it. Yeah, no, I mean, look, you could line him up wherever. He flourished in Manny Diaz's system. Here it is. And you line up at defensive end, you line up at safety, you line up at linebacker, it didn't matter. So, like, it was just really cool to see him have his year. I thought he was super underrated coming into the year for a guy who was tied for the most interceptions going into his senior year. I still think he's going to be underrated, just like Brisker was. Like, he's a fringe to me. He's a fringe first, second round guy. He will not go in the first round. I promise you that, which sucks. But he is a guy he's cut from the same cloth that Brisker is. And I was a little skeptical. I'm going to be honest with you guys. Like, I was a little skeptical of, like, his ability to tackle, right? Like, I did not know if he was going to be able to make enough plays in the box, right? Or wrap people up. And I don't think he's as good of a tackler as Brisker is. But that dude had 16 career turnovers, being a part of 16 turnovers in his career at Penn State. He has a nose for being around the football. I think he ended up with 4.5 sacks. You can't make up stuff like that, right? Like, think about a career like that, and then think about, as much as I love Marcus Allen, a guy who only had 1 turnover in his entire career, right? I mean, Jair Brown is going to be a successful player at the next level, regardless of when he gets drafted, and we are going to very much miss him. And there's just no other way around it. The interception, it was cool for him to go out the way he did with the interception, and then I got to show this one more time because this sack is just beautiful, right? I mean, it's just like you have to show it because. Do I have it? Oh yeah, here it is. I mean, the way he puts his right tackle on skates, I mean, it's just gorgeous. So yeah, Tig Brown, congratulations. You've won the We're Gonna Miss You Hardies Award. And I really don't know if it's that close. Look, Joey Porter Jr., we're gonna miss him. Sean Clifford, we're gonna miss him. At least we are. I know some people won't, but you don't replace Nick Tarburton, we're gonna miss. I'm not going to go through all the guys that are leaving. Brenton Strange, but this was a no-brainer for me, Sean.
Yeah, I think you summed it up well. His draft position, and this is his night. He won a big award. I was more high on Brisker only because of the tackling, but I could argue he's a better playmaker than Brisker, so maybe that makes up for it.
Yeah, we're going to take a brief pause, and we're going to talk about the Twitter poll questions. Before I talk about this year's Twitter, or the end of season Twitter poll questions, I want to talk about the preseason ones. Sean, I'm just going to read these off to you. Again, these happened on August 12th, 2022. So before the season started. And here are the questions and here are the results. Who will be the most impactful offensive player? 64% Sean Clifford, 28% Parker Washington, 7% Kevon Lee, 1% other. Who will be the most impactful defensive player? 48% PJ Mustafer, 31% Jair Brown, 20% Curtis Jacobs, 1% other. Who will be the most impactful special teams player? 70% Jake Pinniger, 23% Xander Sahadak, 5% Barney Moore, and 2% other. Who will be the most impactful true freshman? 76% of the vote for Nick Singleton, 23% of the vote for Deni Dennis Sutton, 0% for Xander Sahadak, which I love that I put him as one of the names, and 1% for other. I think I was trying to go with one offensive player, one defensive player, one special teams player, but looking at that in hindsight, it looks pretty terrible.
Well, everybody was right except that 1% that said Sahadak, so.
That's true. What game are you most worried about? 61% Ohio State. And this is interesting to me, Shawn. 18% at Michigan and 13% at Auburn, which in hindsight, it's like, why was Auburn and Michigan so close? But I thought that was kind of interesting. Penn State's rush offense will be blank in 2022. 88% said better. 10% said the same. 2% said worse. 2% of people, just very grumpy people. Penn State's defense will be blank in 2022. 50% said the same. 26% said better. 24% said worse. So that was a pretty split group there, and that would be interesting to contrast that with the final results here. Quote, I will be happy if Penn State goes. 51% said 9-3, Shawn. 32% said 10-2 or better. 14% said 8-4, and 3% said they'd be happy if Penn State went 7-5, which is just funny. And then the question was Penn State's record in 2022 will be 44% said 9-3, 8-4 was 24% of the vote, 22% of the vote was 10-2, and 10% of people who voted thought Penn State would finish 7 or 5 or worse. Hold on to those as we get to some questions in the posts because it's pretty interesting. Some of y'all are liars. And I love this last question. Did you retweet the first tweet in a thread so we can get better statistics? 39% of the vote was no, I'm selfish. Just hold on to that as we head into these new ones. Because it's funny. What's up, Mark Creeder? It'll be interesting to see if Coach Franklin and Coach Diaz decide to let Carter be a factor, how they to decide to not let Carter be a factor. Carter. Oh, yeah. I think that question might have been 3 minutes ago. That might have been revolved around how they're going to let Abdul Carter in the future do things. Appreciate you being here, Mark Creeder. Okay, here are the poll questions for post 2022. So this is on January 8th. Results just finished today. Who was the most impactful player on offense? 67% said Nick Singleton, 26% said Sean Clifford, 4% said Brenton Strange, and 3% said other. By the way, we had more than double the amount of votes in postseason as we did preseason. So we appreciate you guys for being here. Who was the most impactful player on defense? 40% Jair Brown, 36% Abdul Carter. That's close, Shawn. And 24% Joey Porter Jr. 0% for other. PJ Mustafer, Curtis Jacobs didn't even make the cut there, which is kind of interesting. Another interesting one. Who was the most impactful player on special teams? 47% said Barney Moore. 28% said Chris Stahl, and only 18% said Jake Pinniger. 7% said other, and I'm assuming that's probably Nick Singleton would be my guess. Maybe Parker Washington.
Me too.
But,
Single.
Yeah. Who was the most impactful true freshman? 70% said Nick Singleton. 28% said Abdul Carter, which I thought was a little interesting. 0% said Deni Dennis Sutton, and 2% said other. What game impressed you the most? This one was closer than I thought, Shawn. 54% of the vote went with Utah, 38% went with Auburn, and 4% for Purdue and Minnesota. I'm really surprised by the Minnesota-Purdue one being tied, but also very, very surprised that Auburn was that close to Utah, given what we know about Auburn. What game do you wish you could have back? This was the biggest blowout, and well, I guess it wasn't the biggest blowout, but pretty much the biggest blowout. Ohio State, 88% of the vote, 12% from Michigan. I didn't even give other options, right? Those are the only two games Penn State lost this past season. Penn State's rush offense was blank in 2023, or 2022, then in 2021. I messed those up on these poll questions, I realize now. Better by 95%, and Penn State's defense was blank in 2022, then in 2021. 73% said better, which again, contrast that to the preseason, right? It was split. 50% said the same, 25% said better, 25% basically said worse. 73% say in hindsight they were better, which I think is a huge testament to Manny Diaz and company. So it was hard. I mean, we sat here and said, like, are they going to be better in 2022? And I think they were, and I think that's pretty cool. To wrap these up, I was happy Penn State went 11-2. 97% of the vote said yes. I was surprised Penn State went 11-2. This is where y'all lied a little bit. Because, yes, 68% of you said you were surprised that Penn State went 11-2. But, God damn it, I know 32% of you were not surprised that Penn State went 11-2. You're lying. You're lying. You're lying. 32% of you did not think that Penn State was going to go 11-2. You're lying, but it's okay. But here's the one that surprised me, Shawn. My views on James Franklin have blank since before the season started. Now, this is good. This is growth by the Penn State football community. 62% said improved. But 37% said stayed the same. I'm like, that's a little high. I know he didn't beat Michigan. I know he didn't beat Ohio State. But maybe those people already thought high of him, right? I guess.
Mm-hmm. That's what I was going to say. I think there are two ways to read that. I think
that's true. Okay.
Maybe half of them had a positive opinion of him going in.
Maybe.
And at least half of them did not. And they thought they just think, well, you lost to Ohio State, Michigan again.
1% said worsened. So, by the way, 189 people voted in that one. So that's like what? That's basically 18 or 19 people believed. Is that right? No. Oh, God. Our buddy Higgins said...
let's not do math, yeah.
our buddy Higgins said, do not do math anymore on the pod after what we did last time. But I'm going to do it. I'm going to do the math here and see what happens if I can. 0.01 times 189. Oh, no. So that's only 2 people, roughly, that said worsened. Not 18. So you got to carry the 0.
I don't know how it's worse, but whatever, man.
Lionheart on YouTube said Corey was Lionheart on YouTube said Corey was a stat major. I did take one stat class that I actually really enjoyed. I wasn't great with it, but I did enjoy it. It was a good one. It's biostatistics. Anyway, do you listen to Hardcore Penn State Football on podcast? Oh, I didn't do this for the last one. I'll have to compare this. So let me go back. I know you guys are probably tired of this, but I want to go back. So before the season started, do you listen to the Hardcore Penn State Football podcast? 34% said yes occasionally. 15% said yes every episode. 32% said no, but I will. And 19% said no, I don't like podcasts. But we only had 53 votes. Now, do you listen to the Hardcore Penn State Football podcast? 12% said yes every episode. 34% said yes occasionally. 36% said no, but I will. 18% said no, I don't like podcasts. So I don't think the percentages really changed, but the amount of votes went up by more than double. So we'll take that as a win, I think. Basically,
Absolutely.
we doubled the amount of people that said they listen to every episode. So that's sweet. And then what did you like most about our coverage? 53% said film breakdown, Shawn. So suck it.
Wow. Okay.
I was surprised, and we got away from the opponent's POV a little bit, and that's kind of my fault. I didn't do a good job reaching out to people, but we do need to probably do a better job getting the opponent's perspective on the show more. We definitely got away from that. It was difficult. We missed a couple, and then it was like, go ahead.
Honestly, like the bigger schools, like the people who follow the bigger schools were more standoffish to us than like the people who followed like Ohio and Central Michigan.
True. That's very true. I think we'll do better next year. That'll be a goal. So that'll be a goal for us internally to do better, because we had some really fantastic guests from other schools on, and we should have done that better. So I do apologize. Maybe I'll try to do it before the season starts. So I the scrambling on like the Sunday and Monday before was tough for me sometimes. So we'll try to do better with that. What would you like to see us do more of in 2023? 37% said more stats and analytics. 30% said more film breakdown, and 29% said more interviews. So, all over the place there. They just want to see more stuff in general, Shawn. And then here we go, Shawn. The question you guys have all been waiting for. Did you retweet the first tweet so we can get better statistics on these questions? 47% said, no, I'm selfish. So congratulations, everybody. You actually got more selfish as the season went on than before the season. So I'm very proud of you guys for that. So thank you. Thank you so much.
Maybe there is some sarcastic answers in there from the Clifford Wars.
Is that what we're calling it? The Clifford Wars?
We'll call it that. The 3-month Clifford War.
I would like to say I won the Clifford Wars. I don't give a shit what anyone else says, but I won the Clifford Awards. Like,
look at the Utah game, man.
Look at hey, last frame reference, right?
You did it.
So, all right. We appreciate you guys for answering those questions. It's always fun to compare and contrast. Was there anything that stood out to you, Shawn, that you want to mention?
Yeah, I mean, I think which game impressed you the most was a little surprising how close it was. I mean, I voted Utah. I thought it was pretty clear that it was Utah. But Auburn more than Purdue and Minnesota. When Auburn, if they played a full roster of Purdue or Minnesota, I think they definitely lose. But I think just getting that SEC victory on the road, I think it meant a lot to people. And listening to, I believe his name's Brad Crawford from 24/7 Sports, he said Penn State has the best chance to dethrone Georgia next year, which, I mean, that's pretty cool. But his game that he referenced was Auburn. And I just found it surprising that that's going to be the game you reference when we just beat a top 10 team in the Rose Bowl in a stadium that was about 70-30 Utah. But I guess that means, I guess you could just say it just means more.
Yeah, I don't even know what to say to that, because I agree with everything you just said 100%. I thought it was a pretty obvious slam dunk answer for it to be Utah. I will say this, being at the Auburn game, that was a moment I will never forget, right? Like, in the time whooping that butt and watching the Auburn fans leave and talking about the SEC environment and all that, like, that was something I will never forget. And it was special. But as far as like true impressiveness on the gridiron, no, it doesn't come close to the Utah one. So, but it was a special moment, and I will never forget that. And it was obviously 2022 season, as we kind of wrap this thing up, right? Like, it was a very special season. We'll talk more about it before we wrap this whole show up, but like, that was a special moment for my family and my friends, right? Like, we had a lot of family. We had like 60 people at our tailgate hanging out with us. It was something we had looked forward to for years, and to it all kind of culminate with that sort of beat down, it's just special. So that was a special moment for me, and I will never forget it. But as far as on the field, yeah, I don't think it really comes close.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, and also I guess views of James Franklin have improved since I guess we got into that a little bit. I think the stayed the same. You have to kind of almost divide that in half. And I want to know who the 1% was that feel worse about James Franklin. Just get their rationale.
I don't want to hear the rationale.
Yeah, that's interesting.
You guys have been fantastic on Twitter. We've grown tremendously, but we have found that there is some really weird people on Twitter. That is what we have found. Let's move on with the awards. Let's finish up these awards here. How about starting off with continuing, I should say, with the wow. I wish I could do the Owen Wilson. Wow.
We got to get that. Yep.
Wow. We were wrong. Wow. Award. Shawn, I think you said you went with Jair Brown first. All right, I'll admit, look, this isn't even really a full, like, wow, we were wrong. This is like a half wow, we were wrong. But I was a little, and this isn't a knock on him because he still had a good year, but I was wrong on Mitch Tinsley. I had Mitch Tinsley. I'm going to go back to my season preview notes here. I had Mitch Tinsley as my bold prediction for leading wide receiver all Big Ten. And that did not happen. So, wow, I was wrong. Mitch Tinsley did not lead the team in receiving yards, did not lead the team in receptions. Did have a good complimentary year. But I'm not saying he had a bad year, but he didn't necessarily take over things like I was hoping a true number one like McConkey would have if he could have. And he definitely wasn't all Big Ten. So, wow, I was wrong.
Yes, you went in a little bit of a different direction than I did. So when I was looking at the team, and this isn't to toot my own horn, there weren't a lot of guys that I was like, "Ooh, I was wrong about this guy." But I mean, I guess that's toot my own horn a little bit.
Welcome to the life, Shawn. It happens to me daily.
Yeah, because I was like Clifford. I was like, I was right about Clifford. It was generally what I thought. I went and like I'll comment a little bit on yours. Like Tinsley, yeah, I think he just was a little different than we thought. He was a really good possession guy, but maybe not quite as explosive as we kind of thought he was going to be the next Jahan Dotson, like a diet Jahan Dotson, if you will. And maybe he was, but he just didn't have that explosion that I think we kind of expected. I went with Brenton Strange. I didn't think Brenton Strange had this season in him. I just did not. And I thought Theo Johnson was going to leapfrog him, and that never happened. And Theo was hurt to start the year, but as the year went on, it was just very evident that Brenton Strange was our most complete tight end and our best tight end. So I'm going to go Brenton Strange. So this is our first non-unanimous. This is our first non-unanimous Hardy Award.
Yeah, that's a good point. And I think that's fair. I think Brenton Strange had a fantastic year and deserves some credit for what he did, especially in the blocking department. I've said this before, but he's really helped his draft stock this year. There's no doubt about it. I mean, he really did. And I think Penn State has a good reputation in the NFL now with tight ends. I think Brenton Strange is going to get drafted and I think could be a potential steal. So, and I've said this before, and I probably shouldn't say it again, but I think he's a better version of what we thought maybe Kyle Carter was going to be at some point. And he's a better blocker than Kyle Carter, and he showed his ability to catch the ball. So I like Brenton Strange and what he's going to be able to do moving forward. First division, I just want to mention again, whenever Shawn and I agreed on a pick, or whenever Shawn and I both took Penn State won this past year in the 2022 season. Obviously, he took Penn State to beat Michigan. Michigan won. I took Penn State to beat Ohio State, and Shawn took Ohio State to beat Penn State, and Ohio State won. Those are the only two we deferred on. the only two Penn State loss. So
we did differ on one other. I picked Auburn to beat Penn State.
Oh,
that's a tough look.
I did not. I forgot about that. Yeah.
No, I tell my mea culpas. I do.
That should be your "Wow, we were wrong" award.
You could be right. Yeah, I picked Penn State to go 9-3, and those losses were to Auburn, Michigan, and Ohio State. So
the wow part of you picking Auburn over Penn State in hindsight, I think deserves it, right? Like that's a pretty wow in hindsight.
I could go also in a different direction and say, wow, I picked Penn State to beat Michigan.
No, this is a happy show.
This is happy. Yeah.
Well, congratulations to Mitch Tinsley and Brendan Strange for winning the Hardies Award. Wow, we were wrong award. Congrats, gentlemen. Next up, the JoeMo Assistant Coach of the Year Award. Believe I went first this last time. Shawn, who did you have as the JoeMo Assistant Coach of the Year Award?
Oh, Manny Diaz. I think he just brought a new energy into the defensive room in general. He also had, on the defensive side of the ball, maybe on the whole team, the toughest position group to coach, because we only had one sure thing at linebacker this year, and that was Curtis Jacobs. The rest of them were all unknowns. Like, did I feel good about Abdul Carter? Yeah, but I mean, going into the year, if you told me he's going to suck, I mean, I probably, at least this year, at least in 2022, I mean, I probably wouldn't have batted an eye because he's a freshman. But that didn't happen. He excelled. And Dom DeLuca did really well when he got on the field. And I think Sutherland might have been a little better than I thought he'd be. And the middle linebackers got a little bit better as the year went on, but we got to get more. And just from a defense, the whole defense in general, they just played at a different speed this year. I thought they tackled better this year. So that's why I'm going to go with Manny.
We're going to disagree again, Shawn. I agree with Manny to a certain degree. Did you hear that?
Yes.
I was waiting for it to happen. It didn't happen for a while.
Do it again. Do it again.
You didn't hear the
I didn't hear the wow. I didn't hear the wow. Do it again.
It might be a second now. I respect the Manny Diaz pick, and again, the defense somehow got better, so I think it deserves that to a certain degree, right? But I went with Phil Trotwine. We gave him so much crap before the season started.
Wow. Yep. Wow. I got it now. Oh, wow.
Oh, man. All right. Wow. I just think we gave Phil Trotwine so much crap this year, and he had a lot to prove, and they didn't say anything all offseason. They even say it when they did good things against Auburn. Like, they just kept plugging away. They had a lot of injuries again, and they plugged guys in, and I think he deserves a lot of credit. Drew Shelton started 5 games this year and did not look out of place, which is incredible to start at left tackle like that. So I think Phil Trotwine deserves a bunch of credit. Rushing yards per carry went up by like 1 point something, which is a lot. Sean Clifford did not get sacked very many times. And Shawn, do you remember back in the spring last year, we were like, bold prediction. We didn't even think Sean Clifford was going to stay healthy for the whole season, right? Like, he hadn't proved that because he was running for his life.
Yep.
And he did it. And the offensive line deserves credit for it. So I went with Phil Trotwine. It was a complete 180 from what it was previously. There was, and I don't think it was fair for it to be on Phil Trotwine, right? But he's got different horses in the stable now, and they've got even more reinforcements coming. So it's an exciting time to be Phil Trotwine. If you did not buy the stock in Phil Trotwine already, you are running out of time. You are running out of time because that it is rising fast for Phil Trautwein. So, yeah, that's how I feel about that guy.
Yeah, I like the pick. Phil Trautwein. Yeah, I like it. I like Manny a little bit better, but I mean, Trautwein, like you said, it's a 180. I mean, I said going into this year, he's on the hot seat, and if his unit isn't better, I want him gone. And I think his recruiting saved him because I think there was a chance. I think James Franklin was probably thinking about firing him last year, but I think the way he recruited, I thought he was worth keeping around, and James Franklin did as well, and it paid off because like you said, having a guy like Drew Shelton ready to play as a true freshman at left tackle, which is probably, like, if you're starting a football team, the third most important position on your team, and he was ready to go. And were there some hiccups? Sure, but I mean, he didn't, like Cory said, he didn't look out of place, and he had a really good season. And Phil Trautwein having him ready to go, big credit to him. And I mean, now I look at him as he went, for me, from the hot seat to one of the best coaches on the staff. I also want to give a shout out to Ty Howell too, because I think his unit got a lot better from last year.
Yeah, I agree with that too, because we were talked about him not necessarily being a hot seat, but it was a warm seat. I think Manny Diaz would have won the award for me if he had a better game plan against Michigan. I'm being honest with you. Like, that one to me was like, eh. And then the Ohio State ending, having off coverage on Marvin Harrison with one of the best corners in the league. I don't want to put those two losses on Manny by himself because everyone deserves blame for the Michigan game. But I would have liked to see Joey Porter Jr. locked up with Marvin Harrison and just make Marvin Harrison beat us. Don't let him have the easy slant. But I've said that before. We can move on. Congratulations to Phil Trautwein and Manny Diaz for the JoeMo Assistant Coach of the Year award. We'll make sure that they are notified, their families are notified, and we'll hopefully they'll take the award with grace and honor. I'm sure they will.
Yeah, it's a huge achievement for them.
Let's get to the all right award. 3 guys that you thought were all right, or maybe a little bit better. You went with Manny Diaz, so I guess I'll go first. And I'm going to go with Sean Clifford, Parker Washington, and Curtis Jacobs. That's my 3 all right. This one, I think we could have been, like, I don't know if we really set the boundaries very well or described it very well.
Yeah, I went in a totally different direction.
Okay, well, I'll just say this. Sean Clifford played more than all right this year. Parker Washington, I thought, played all right this year. And then Curtis Jacobs, I think part of it was him having to play a little bit of a position he didn't want to play. Didn't have maybe the statistics that we were hoping he was going to have. But there was moments where you were hoping he would make a little bit more of an impact. There's a 3rd and 4 against Michigan where he runs away from Donovan Edwards on the pass block, and J.J. McCarthy's able to scramble for the first down. If he just runs through Donovan Edwards, J.J. McCarthy probably can't scramble out. But then there was games like Minnesota where Curtis Jacobs came alive. So above average for all 3 of these guys, right? Parker Washington, Minnesota game, Ohio State game, fantastic. But they didn't necessarily play fantastic the entire season. Like, Parker Washington was quiet for a lot of the beginning of the season. Sean Clifford, as good as he was in the Utah game, obviously wasn't perfect in some of those other games. So those are my 3 all right. But yeah, Sean, this one could be very diverse. So,
and it is. I went with Barney Amore, giving the special teams guys some love, Johnny Dixon, and Bryce Effner. And I thought they were all right. Barney had some really great moments this year. I don't remember him having an all-out shank. I might be wrong on that, but I remember some disappointing punts. But I thought he got us out of some trouble at times, and that's really what you want from your punter. I went with Johnny Dixon, 3rd best corner on the team, but pretty reliable. I liked him, and we're going to need him next year. And I went with Bryce Effner. We all remember the Ohio State game. He not good, but more often than not, he was good. Like, he was a guy that we could count on. And I remember going into the season, right tackle position was like big red flags. And I was like, is that position going to be good enough to improve the offensive line like we need it to be? And it was. And I almost went with Caden Wallace / Bryce Effner, but Caden Wallace was out for a lot of the year. And Bryce Effner really held it down at right tackle. So that's who I went with. But like Cory said, you could have viewed the award as Cory did, or you could have viewed it the way I did. And I think both of us have good rationales on what we were trying to do.
I'll go on record and say I like yours more. I do.
Oh,
I really like the Dixon pick. I really do. I think that's a very good. All right. I like the Effner pick. I like the Barney and Moore pick. I don't want to retrace my picks, but I would say that I like yours more. If it makes it to social media, that might become a unanimous one on social media, just so everybody knows. But I do think those other guys deserve it, but I like the way you went with it more. So there we go. That's how I feel about that. I agree with everything you said. All right. Slab. Big slab. Yeah, no, I'm with you. I'm with you there. All right, Shawn. Final award. The Samwise Gamgee. Oh, wait. Congratulations to Barney Amore, Johnny Dixon, and Bryce Effner for winning the All Right award in the inaugural Hardies Award Show. And the final award, the Samwise Gamgee Unsung Hero Award. Who do you got, Shawn? I think we might agree here.
I have Juice Scruggs. I think Juice Scruggs really pulled us out of the fire a lot this year. And as good as the offensive line was, I cringed to think about what would happen if Juice went down too. Especially being that Nick Dawkins was hurt most of the year, so we didn't have a backup center. And we would have had some crazy combinations out there if he got hurt. And I think the whole thing could have just fell apart. But he was able to stabilize it, and I thought he was awesome this year. I really do. You know, maybe he wasn't as good as the guy from Michigan, but he was probably the second best center that I saw in the Big Ten this year.
Yep, we agree there. I have Juice Scruggs as well. Can't really show my appreciation for him more. I mean, he just got the job done, right? And like you said, without him, where they've been, I was going to mention too, highest snap count on a team. Nobody played more football for Penn State than Juice Scruggs, which more than Sean Clifford, more than any other defensive player. Juice Scruggs, I think he has an 858, something like that. So he played the most football. If I gave that in a trivia question, I doubt a lot of people would choose that. So yeah, I'm with you. 100%. So there's not a lot to say. We're going to miss Juice Scruggs. He could have easily been on the We're Going to Miss You award too. But Samwise Gamgee award feels appropriate, right? Like he is the center to the quarterback. If I can't make this analogy, you're not even going to get it because you don't even know the freaking movie.
Is there a Star Wars equivalent? Like a Chewbacca? Would you say Chewbacca?
You could say Juice Scruggs was the Chewbacca to the Sean Clifford Han Solo, perhaps.
Okay.
But it's not as good as Juice Scruggs being the Samwise Gamgee to the Nick Singleton Frodo Baggins, which you will learn before the end of spring. Otherwise, we're not doing this podcast together.
Oh, wow.
Congratulations to Juice Scruggs. You've won the Hardies Samwise Gamgee Unsung Hero Award. Those are it, ladies and gentlemen. So just to recap it for you guys, we had the Premature Maturation Award going to Abdul Carter, Getting Offensive Award to Nick Singleton, Mr. Dependable to Kalen King, Havoc Award to Chop Robinson, We're Gonna Miss You Award to Jair Brown / Tig Brown, Wow, We Were Wrong Award to Mitch Tinsley and Brenton Strange, JoeMo Assistant Coach of the Year Award to Phil Trotwine and Manny Diaz. All right award. We're just going to give it to Barney Amore, Johnny Dixon, and Bryce Effner. And the Samwise Gamgee Unsung Hero Award to Juice Scruggs. So congratulations to all of our winners. Maybe we'll get some Chili's gift cards. Moving forward. Cowboy Ribeye comes in out of nowhere. Devin Carter was not guaranteed to start. Like, dude, where have you been? Christmas ribeye. All right,
Christmas.
Are you good with all that? That was fun. I enjoyed that. That was a different way to recap the
season.
season.
That was fun. That was actually really fun, and because we got a lot of the recap done in talking about the awards. So
yeah,
it was awesome.
We will wrap up with final thoughts, Shawn, after the fan questions. So if you have any spill your guts out for the pod, just hold on to those for just a little bit longer. Fan question time. Oh, that actually popped up right away. Fan question time here at Hardcore Penn State Football. If you have questions, drop them over on our Twitter at HardcorePSUFB. First question's from BK. I love this question, by the way. How much do you think Penn State's investment in offense and defensive analysts have helped this year, as I'm sure they help self-scout our own defense and offensive tendencies, as well as help break down the opponent's weaknesses? I love this question because it's not talked about enough. I want to add at the beginning of this, Shawn, analysts are now allowed to be at practice. New rule. So they're basically allowed to be coaches without being coaches, which is different, right? So before, the analyst had to be on the sideline and he wasn't allowed to yell or talk to the players or something like that. They're allowed to be there now because it was kind of a loophole anyway. So analysts much are allowed to be coaches for the most part, not on game day, but during practice. First name I thought of, right? You could go a lot of different directions with all this. I think the only one that really matters, in my opinion, is Frank Leonard and what he did with the offensive line. I thought he came in here. We just gave Phil Trotwine JoeMo Assistant Coach of the Year award. I think part of that reason is because of what Leonard was able to do. Came in, was maybe the bite behind Trotwine's bark to a certain degree. He was more vocal about certain things. I think he's got a little bit of nasty out of some of these guys. So I think it made a big difference to make it simple. I think they brought in a lot of guys. I don't think Franklin is afraid of criticism, or I don't think he's afraid of doing things differently. And so more people at the table, I think, just benefits him. And I don't think he's a fantastic game day coach, right? So the more people that can help tune his own thinking is good. So, excuse me, to answer the question, very much. It helped very much, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think quite a bit. I mean, it doesn't hurt, right? Ken Wisenhunt was here, and Frank Leonard's the big name. And Frank Leonard, he brings a more old school approach to coaching football. He's more likely to, get on you, which is fine with me because there's more than one way to skin a cat. And Troutwine's kind of a new school guy. He's, from all reports, very calm presence, and that works too. So to have that blend in that room, I think, is very beneficial. And just the blend of age. Phil Troutwine played with Tim Tebow, and Tim Tebow did not play college football very long ago. And I'm not going to go off on Tim Tebow. I'm going to do well on that. But he didn't play football very long ago, and Frank Leonard's been around the block. So I think, definitely helps. And think of it this way. When Kirby Smart called a timeout to stop that fake punt, who do you think radioed down to him? It probably was, I'm willing to bet it wasn't one of his position coaches. It was probably an analyst. It was probably somebody who's there just to look out for that stuff. So why do I say that? Because we need to get more of these guys in. We need to get more analysts to be able to help snuff that stuff out as well. So yes, it helps. And yes, we need more.
Yeah, I agree there. Let's go to the next question. This is from CFP of CFP, longtime listener. What are the most important position battles and or position developments going into the spring? Most obvious is wide receiver, but I think there are a couple on defense and special teams that will be important in 2023. Cowboy Ribeye, by the way, wants to know your TiVo thing. I'm going to make you wait till next episode, Cowboy Ribeye. This is the most geared towards 2023 question we have today. Again, we have more fan questions you guys gave us that I have held on to, but we'll talk about them moving forward. Shawn, just quickly, most important position battle besides wide receiver as we head into the spring, if you had to give us one.
Probably that safety spot. I'm interested to see who replaces Jair Brown. Like we said, you can't really replace what Jair Brown did on the defense, but who gets more of the lion's share of the snaps. I'm assuming Keaton Ellis is probably penciled in as a starter. But Zackeet Wheatley is the guy who's there. I think KJ Winston's going to make a push. So I would probably say safety, and maybe we want to iron out a true middle linebacker, or like a guy that's going to play, most, maybe 80 to 90% of the snaps at middle linebacker. So maybe Kobe King versus Tyler Elston, but I'd probably go safety.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and say my linebacker is mine so we can cover that base. Kobe King, Tyler Elston. Does Abdul Carter learn the Mike position a little bit too? Like, they have a lot of options now, so very interested in all of that. Does Jacobs move back to the Sam? Like, what is the plan going to be with the linebackers in general? Like, where do they see everybody at? Where are the young guys, the early enrollees? Where are they going to be playing? Where's Rojas going to be? Where's Robinson going to be? Where's Kayvon Keys when he comes into summer? Where's he going to be? That's going to be an interesting thing. Keon Wiley finally got healthy. He had a half a sack in the Rose Bowl. Where's he going to be? The linebackers in general, I think I'm very excited. I think they're going to go from a weakness to a strength, but it's going to take a really good winter camp, winter strength and conditioning, and then a really good spring to get there. So, yeah, I'm excited for those. We have a lot of time to talk about those moving forward. So I want to just flirt with that a little bit. We can get more into that as we get into the off season. Final question today. I want you to barely answer Dorito's first part of this question and really focus on the second part, because I think the second part is definitely worth talking about since we spoke about it last episode. And that is, which game do you view as more of a key game next year if Penn State was able to go 11-1? Michigan or Ohio State? Basically, who would you rather win, Michigan or Ohio State? Just a yes or no on that, right? Or either or on that. And then give me this, Shawn. With Curtis Jacobs returning, how much does that decrease the lack of senior leadership concern? I think that was a fantastic question. What do you got?
It is a very good question. And I would go Michigan, just because I think Michigan's the new dragon to slay. Like, they're the team to beat now, and the Big Ten goes through Ann Arbor. So I would go Michigan, but I'd love to beat the Buckeyes as well. So I'm not gonna. I don't think it's clear cut, because I think we got to get that Ohio State monkey off our back. But I would go Michigan just because I think the Big Ten currently goes through Ann Arbor, as long as Jim Harbaugh's still there. There's a lot of speculation now. If you live in a cave, you might not know. Jim Harbaugh was interviewed by the Denver Broncos. He's supposedly interested in every NFL job known to man. Question is the NFL interested in, a guy pushing 60 who's a little quirky, and I don't know if he still fits in with the NFL. So just something to keep an eye on. But he's still a great college coach.
What about that last part of the question, Shawn?
Oh, you wanted both parts. Oh, okay.
The second part was actually one I cared more about, to be honest with you. But that's okay.
Somewhat it decreases the lack of senior leadership. But again, Curtis Jacobs has to be more vocal. And this is something that's not a big secret. It's something that James Franklin's actually talked about. he's got to find his voice a little more. And if you're not going to do it this year, then you're never going to do it. So I would like to see him, with the guy like Tig Brown, who nobody's going to call quiet, out from from on defense. PJ Mustipher was kind of the guy they went to when things went wrong. He's gone. So maybe now with those two big personalities gone, maybe Curtis Jacobs is able to step up into that more vocal role, because I think we might need him to be.
Yeah, I'll say Michigan too, just to be quick with it. You have them at home. I think you got to win the home games first. So, yes, Michigan. And then the second part, yes, I'm not as concerned. I think Keaton Ellis has to step up and play a bigger role. Izzard, Ellies, Adisa Isaac, Chop Robinson, someone on the defensive line needs to step up. I am a little bit less concerned, to give credit to Dorito, but I'm not out of the woods yet. And honestly, Abdul Carter's already played a lot of football, right? I mean, he's not a freshman anymore. You'd like to see your best players show leadership. Abdul Carter, he wants to step up and be a leader right now. I wouldn't be surprised if maybe he is a captain next year. Like, there's a lot of vacancies in the captain department heading into next year. So that shall be interesting. Thank you so much for the questions. Again, you guys gave us a lot of great questions. We'll be back with some of the ones that you gave us this week for next week as well. Wanted to keep this episode a little bit cut down on the fan questions, since we have a lot of time to talk about 2023. But thank you guys so much for all those questions. All right, Shawn. Final thoughts here before we get out of here. I'm going to just put it on your screen and just kind of, final wrap of your thoughts on 2022. And I guess maybe, I don't want to call it elevator pitch again, but your thoughts moving forward too. But hold on. I want to make sure to get this this thing to pop up here before you start talking, because I'm going to clip this guy and I'm going to include it on the probably on social media. So I want to make sure. There you go. All you, Boo.
This was an awesome team to watch week to week. It really was. And when you're sitting here in January after, the title game's over, after all the bowl games are over, typically you feel one of two ways, at least I do. You're either wanting them to play next week, or you're like, nah, I could wait a few months to see these guys again. This team, I mean, if they were playing on Saturday, I'd be so excited to watch them play again, because it was just a really fun team to watch. And the way they overcame things, the way they overcame adversity from the 2021 season. And like we said previously on the episode already tonight, the offensive line had been roundly criticized for many, many years. And for them to come out against really almost everybody and really show that they're one of the best offensive lines in the Big Ten, I mean, that's a huge turnaround. And you're going to miss a lot of the senior. I think the senior leadership is not going to be easily replaced going into 2023. And I'm as excited as anybody going into that year. But you're losing Cliff, you're losing Jair Brown, you're losing PJ Mustipher, you're losing Jonathan Sutherland. And these are all guys that were as important off the field as on the field. So you're going to miss those guys. You're going to miss, having the guys that could keep the locker room together, that could get up after a bad game at Michigan and be willing to call people out, but not point fingers. And that's a big thing. Hold people accountable, but don't play the blame game, but still be willing to have those tough conversations. That's what leadership is. And that's not something that we've had on teams in the past, sometimes the immediate past, and some guys that were supposed to be leaders on past teams really failed in that department. But this is the best the locker room has been since those, Saquon, Kabinda, McSorley years. And that's a testament to how good the leadership has been. And they were just fun to watch. It was fun to see them get better as the year went on. And you got to be excited about next year because, yeah, we got to replace that leadership. But, man, this young talent. And look at how many freshmen we gave awards to tonight. Look at how many guys coming back that we gave awards to tonight. I mean, you got to be so excited. I know Cory has talked about he's going to miss the low expectations, but Bama has high expectations every year. Georgia has high expectations every year. Michigan's going to have a high expectation again. You can't run away from it. And you got to embrace it. And the great teams, the great programs embrace those high expectations. And they don't just meet those expectations, they exceed those expectations. So we got to be able to do that. And I really think if everything falls together right, this could be a playoff team next year. And I might even go as far as say it should be a playoff team next year. If it works out at quarterback, receiver, middle linebacker, and if we have those leaders step up.
Yeah, that's some good stuff, Shawn. I mean, you hit it on the head. It's exciting, right? Like the expectations being higher is exciting. It's nerve-wracking, but it's exciting. And I agree with everything you said. The leadership stuff especially. I'm going to miss this 2022 season, to be honest with you. I thought it was one of the more fun seasons I've watched Penn State football play in my life. Someone had a good point on social media, and they said it was exciting that it was fun to watch Penn State football, not just when they were on offense, but also when they were on defense. And I thought that was a really good point, right? Like, you were excited to see what Manny Diaz and company were going to throw it at opposing offenses, and it was can't miss football. And that's pretty cool to see. We hadn't had that necessarily for a while. We had good defenses, but not necessarily explosive defenses, which is pretty cool. We didn't really speak much about Mike Yursich tonight, but he rebounded in a big way, and he deserves credit for that too. For the first time, basically all the offensive numbers were as good as they were since basically 2017, which is pretty important to get back on the right track. We said this season needed to be a year where they got back on track. 11-11 the past 2 years. They needed to at least get back on track. 9-10 wins, whatever. And as you'd said on Twitter, Shawn, they excelled. They exceeded those expectations. And that's awesome. But it wasn't just that they exceeded those expectations. They did it in a fun way, right? They had 2 grueling games, and I get that. But they finished the year by winning the games they were supposed to in the way they were supposed to. And then honestly, probably in a way they weren't even supposed to in the Rose Bowl. And to me, that's what gets me so excited for the future. You hit it on the head. A lot of young guys won some awards tonight. There's a lot of things pointing towards the future. But again, I just want for one last time before we start looking to 2023, appreciate what this 2022 season was, right? We got the curtain call moment for Sean Clifford. We got the beatdown at an SEC environment that nobody really expected to happen. We got to see the future in Drew Aller and the growing pains that maybe came with that. We got to see 2 phenomenal potential generational talents at running back. There's just a lot of fun things we saw this year that we're going to probably take for granted to a certain degree heading into next year because we expect that now. But those were things we weren't necessarily ready for, right? We didn't know what Chop Robinson was going to be. We didn't know how Adisa Isaac was going to rebound from his injury. We didn't know what Kalen King was going to be as a true corner by himself. We didn't know what the tight end situation was going to be moving forward. We didn't know Olu Fashanu was going to be a first round pick. There's just a lot of uncertainties going into 2022. And now as we leave 2022, a lot of those boxes were checked. And finally, Shawn, I mean, this was our first full season together, man. And it was a blast. It was a really good time. It went incredibly quick. I mean, it just gone just like that. And I really enjoyed the entire season. I enjoyed hopping on here twice a week and talking college football and talking specifically Penn State football with you. So it's been a really good time, Shawn.
Yeah, it was awesome. It was awesome. Really the whole year, but I think especially the football season. It just felt like the pod grew a lot, and we grew a lot on Twitter, and we get lots of attention from lots of interesting people. So it was a lot of fun, and it feels like we were just picking out wing sauces to describe position groups.
Yeah.
And we're going to probably be doing a similar thing to that next year. And when we went twice a week, I mean, we put out a lot of content every week, but it always felt like we could have done more. Like, I would always think like, oh, we could have mentioned that on the pod. And, so it really felt like we covered a lot of bases, and, putting out 4 or 5 hours of content every week. It was a lot of fun. And now we go into the off season, but there is no off season at Hardcore Penn State Football. I mean, we're hardcore. So we're going to be back next week. We're going to be back the week after, and we're going to have stuff to talk about. And it's going to, because in the college football world, it really doesn't stop. It's not even like, if we were an NFL show, we would just be talking. I mean, we would talk about the draft, and we talk about free agency, and then there's like a bunch of nothing going on for a while. So, and there's, yeah. So there's always going to be stuff going on at Penn State. So we're looking forward to it this year, and stick with us, guys. Stick with us for the off season, and then, regular season will be here soon. Spring practice will be here very soon. That was just announced. It'll be April 15th. So tax day, come to Happy Valley, and hopefully you got a refund this year.
Yeah. Thank you to everybody. I mean, look, we're a new podcast, right? And a lot of people don't like going out of their way to new things, but we grew tremendously in the last couple months, and we appreciate that. All we ever asked from you guys was to share it with someone else. Drop us some 5-star reviews on Apple, which you should still do. Someone dropped us a 5-star rating, but not a review. So drop us a review so we can read it on the show. But you guys were there from the beginning. A lot of regulars, a lot of them are on YouTube now. A lot of them have been fan questions for the entire season. And it's been great to have that conversation with you guys. This is not a show. It is a community, and it has started with you guys. So we appreciate it. There are merch items available. I'm going to be honest with you, we don't make very much money off of those. There's stickers available. There's shirts available if you feel like you want to be a part of the community and the identity. But honestly, I think I've maybe mentioned the merch store like once or twice the entire season, because it's really not about that. It's about, hanging out here and talking Penn State football with you guys. So thank you guys so much. Like Shawn said, we're just kind of getting started here. I was going to say we are sort of hardcore in the way people were telling us we had too much on the show. Like they couldn't listen to the amount we were putting out when we were putting 2 episodes out at almost 3 hours each, which I get that. And to a certain degree, maybe it is a little off-putting, right? Maybe it's too much to listen to, but it's also pretty cool that we're putting out a lot more content than some people that are doing this for a living. And that's no knock on them, but this is just what we're doing for fun, and we're having a blast doing it. So thank you guys for being along for the ride.
Yeah, thanks guys so much. It's been awesome, and it's been awesome. And thanks again to Cory for bringing me on. So I'm not here without him.
And we'll move on to season 3 starting next week. We'll be back live on YouTube Wednesday, 8 p.m. Eastern. Appreciate you guys. If you haven't already liked the video, make sure you've subscribed wherever you're listening, whether it's on YouTube or on a podcast directory. Until next time, for Hardcore Penn State Football, I'm Cory Listoki. That's Shawn Kane. The last time in 2022 Penn State football season. We will see you later.
The Clifford Wars have ended. Have a good night, everybody.